Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones is the best thing ever made by a human. Except for Rise of Skywalker.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
All kidding and pizza rolls aside, I feel Attack of the Clones gets a lot more hate than it deserves. While it does contain some cringy dialogue,
I don't like sand.
And some strange moments like a shape-shifting assassin covering her face, I personally think Attack of the Clones has a lot to offer when it comes to a Star Wars film. So today, we're gonna dive deep into Attack of the Clones, and I'm gonna talk about some of my favorite things about Attack of the Clones, talk about the movie, talk about some of my fondest memories that are kind of attached to Attack of the Clones, and go into why I honestly think that Attack of the Clones is underrated today. Attack of the Clones was released on May 16th, 2002. While the film was praised for its action initially, it was looked at a lot more critically for its characters and especially its dialogue.
He's overly critical. He never listens. He doesn't understand.
The film grossed over $650 million, but it was the first Star Wars film to lose that #1 spot once the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man came out, and then later that year when Lord of the Rings Two Towers was released. While The Phantom Menace was the first of the Star Wars prequel films that I personally saw in a theater, I'll always have a very special place for Attack of the Clones. It was the Star Wars film that came out at this perfect little zenith of time for me personally. I was at the right age to really start getting into the world of Star Wars fully. I had already loved Star Wars up to this point, but this was really where I started learning more about the backstory of the characters, getting into the marketing, the toys, and really immersing myself fully into the world of collecting Star Wars things. Now, because I do look back on the film with this fondness, or for nostalgia, as you want to say, it does give me a little bit of a rose-tinted glasses when it comes to me looking back on the film compared to how other people approach it. Ever since 2002, Attack of the Clones has been the butt of a lot of jokes, from the Red Letter Media Plinkett reviews, all the way to Triumph the Unsold Comic Dog.
So this is to help you breathe, yes?
Yes.
And which of these buttons calls your parents to pick you up?
The love story between Anakin and Padme being the primary source of these jokes.
The pain is so bad. The pain and the torment.
Your kiss haunts me. It is like a scar on my heart.
This is going to destroy us.
Now, because of all of that, you're thinking to yourself, John, how are you going to defend Attack of the Clones and state right now that this film is underrated? Well, let's jump right into it and talk about some of my favorite aspects of the film. The first thing I want to talk about is the world building. Attack of the Clones brought us so many different things that have now become staples in the Star Wars universe. From the world of Dex's Diner,
Obi-Wan!
Hello, Dex.
To the Jedi Library, the Younglings, and even the Separatists. The planet of Coruscant got more fleshed out since Phantom Menace. We see a little bit of Tusken Raider culture before Anakin. The clones on Kamino, which would then of course become a big part of the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch animated series. And while we're talking about world building, let's talk about cinematography. While the film is filled with a lot of digital shots that have not aged particularly well, there are still some gorgeous shots that can be found throughout the entire film. Another important piece of the film is the duality of the events that happen in Attack of the Clones compared to the events that happen in the original trilogy.
Again, it's like poetry, sort of they rhyme.
Just like The Empire Strikes Back, there's another galactic civil war waging with a large-scale ground battle with walkers. The heroes are split into different plots. Two of the leads fall in love over the course of the story while hiding from the bad guys. And right before it seems like one or both of them might die, the woman professes her love.
I love you.
I know.
A Skywalker leaves his mission to follow another vision he has of his loved ones in danger, but he ends up being too late. There's a bounty hunter with the last name Fett involved in the plot. There is a chase through an asteroid field, and C-3PO ends up in pieces and R2-D2 has to drag him around. Just some similarities to The Empire Strikes Back specifically, which of course was the middle film of the original trilogy. I also think that Attack of the Clones has some of the best action scenes within the entire trilogy of the prequel movies. You have, of course, the scene with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jango Fett on Kamino in the rain, which I think is really, really great. Then extending from there, we do have Obi-Wan and Jango Fett in the asteroid field over Geonosis, which did bring us probably the best sound effect in the entire Star Wars universe, probably outside the lightsaber sound effect. You have the speeder chase through Coruscant with Obi-Wan and Anakin chasing after the bounty hunter that almost killed Padme. It's a really exciting, and I honestly think the special effects in that scene still hold up today, even though we're over 20 years since that scene came out, and of course compared to many other scenes throughout the film which have some dated CGI, but I think these action scenes really do hold up even in today's standards. Of course, we have the big ones at the end. We have the battle arena with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme up against those different creatures. And then once all of the Jedi show up, we have the big fight scene with the Jedi where we have Mace Windu show up with everyone else. And we have, unfortunately, the death of Jango Fett in there, which would then lay the seeds for Boba Fett's story as time would go on. And the big kind of set piece, I know, was a big part of the initial promotion of the film when it initially came out, was the first time seeing Yoda fight, because this was the first time that Yoda was a CGI character. He was no longer a puppet. And I remember being a kid and being super excited to see Yoda jumping around and fighting Count Dooku in this scene. I know people have mixed feelings about that, but I honestly think it's really, really awesome to see Yoda in his kind of prime, per se, jumping around and having fighting. And I think it fits perfectly into the tone of the prequel films, whereas with the original trilogy, it worked best for Yoda to be a puppet, to be more stoic and more about the meaning behind the Force, whereas in the tone of the prequels, it was a lot more action heavy and a lot more kind of a bigger focus on those specific imagery compared to the more kind of relaxed nature of the original trilogy. So I really think that the Yoda fight scene is really, really awesome when it comes to the terms of what are some great things about Attack of the Clones. Speaking a little bit more towards Yoda and also the importance of this digital character for the future of filmmaking is because, of course, with Phantom Menace, we had Jar Jar Binks as being one of the first, if not the first, fully CGI character, main character, in a full feature film. And then now you have, with Attack of the Clones, not just Jar Jar Binks showing up, but you have Yoda being a full CGI character now. This is the same year that Lord of the Rings Two Towers came out, and we had Gollum in that film. And I think that Attack of the Clones and Star Wars prequels in general don't get the credit that they deserve for the pioneering work that these artists did in creating these fully realized CGI characters over 20 years ago. And now we live in an age where it's one of those things that we have the James Cameron Avatar movies, we have the recent Planet of the Apes movies, and I think if it wasn't for these Star Wars prequels and of course Lord of the Rings, we wouldn't have those wonderful leaps in this type of technology that we do have in filmmaking today. definitely one of the biggest reasons why I love Attack of the Clones is the John Williams score. Now, no matter how you may feel about the individual Star Wars films themselves, it is consistent that John Williams' score is incredible across the board whenever he touches a Star Wars movie, and Attack of the Clones is no different.
My goodness, you've grown.
So have you. Grown more beautiful, I mean.
Now, back in 2002, when this movie came out, I had the CD of the score for Attack of the Clones, and I was one of those kids who had that in his CD player, and I would walk around all summer of 2002, even when I went on vacation with my family, and what I would be listening to is I wouldn't be listening to the pop hits of the year or anything like that. I'd be listening to the entire Attack of the Clones score by John Williams. So that score plays rent-free in my head because of how much I listened to it as a kid during that year when the movie came out. So that definitely, I think, is a major factor in one of the greatest parts of this entire movie. So those were all of our thoughts about why we think Attack of the Clones is a underrated Star Wars movie. Now, what is your personal opinion about Attack of the Clones? Do you have fond memories about it? Do you think about it in a completely different way? Let us know in the comments below. If you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content just like this, and also deep dives into the world of pop culture collectibles. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep on collecting.